Security personnel who monitor the CCTV camera feed. What crazy things have you seen?
I get to watch the security cameras just outside a courthouse, and my most memorable viewing was a woman who had just failed her drug test waddle jogging across a parking lot with 2 drug court employees trailing behind her. She got in someone's SUV and shoved the driver out, then bumped the car into the 2 employees who at that point had their hands on the hood to try and stop her. She then reversed and drove off over a curb. The police picked her up a month or so later. Story 2, So Many. Was a loss prevention manager in retail in a past life. Saw a woman change her baby's shitty diaper inside a round coat rack, using the coats to wipe the baby. Saw a thief conceal a boombox between her legs under a full flounced prairie skirt and walk normally through the length of the store and right out the front door. Saw a clocked-in male employee sleep through an entire shift on the top rack of shelving in a stockroom. Let him sleep and kept the camera recording for 5+ hours. Story 3. I work on a luxury cruise line for older folks. Loads of old people walking the hallways naked, disconnected from the world on sleeping meds. I went on my first cruise a month ago. Every now and then, if I'm in a strange place and have had a few drinks, I will sleepwalk. It's super rare, hasn't happened to me in years. But for some reason, the second or third night there, I woke up in the middle of the night to pee in just my boxers. I was fully woken up by the door to our room slamming shut and found myself in the hallway. No phone, no card key, only in my boxers, and about to piss myself. It was like a literal nightmare, haha. My only option was to sprint as fast as I could down like 3 floors to the first public restroom to pee, praying that nobody was out and about. Made it there in the clear, did my business, then tried to figure out my plan. My wife was in the room, but it was the middle of the night. Who knew if she would wake up to door knocking? But it was my only hope. So I peeked out the bathroom doors, saw nobody, and sprinted back up 3 floors, taking like 4 steps at a time. Got to my room, knocked quietly, nothing. Little bit harder, nothing. Then just kind of banged on it. All the while just sure someone was going to turn the corner and see me. Thank God my wife opened the door and let me in, and I hadn't run into anyone. But as I drifted back to sleep, I kind of giggled at the thought of security watching me on the cameras in my nightmare jog to the bathroom and back in my underwear. Story 4. I worked as a surveillance agent at a casino, had cameras everywhere. One night, an elderly lady got up from a slot machine, but her foot was caught on her sweater, which was caught on the swivel chair. She fell, and the way she landed on her ankle, it made her ankle bone snap and rip out of her skin. Could see the bone and all. Story 5. I worked IT for a lumber company and had to submit 2 specific videos to our legal department, which unfortunately resulted in me having to watch the events to capture the video clips. They are forever etched in my mind. The first, bunk lumber, was being unloaded from a flatbed trailer as the driver was on the driver's side collecting his tie-down straps. Forklift driver was picking lumber from the opposite side and his forks inadvertently shoved an entire bunk of joists on top of the unaware driver. He unfortunately died of his injuries. The second, saw operator, reaching across a stack of lumber in the saw and losing his arm just above the elbow. I'll never forget the moment of shock as he just stood there holding his severed arm for what seemed like an eternity. Story 6. I installed a bunch of CCTV cameras in a large berry packing facility. I was there for a couple of weeks for commissioning. One evening, a black bear wanders into the plant through one of the forklift doors. They just have the clear vinyl curtains when operating. The bear finds a stack of freshly picked berries that hadn't yet been processed and just goes to town. After about 20 minutes, I guess they had enough and left the way they came. Another installation at a bar. A bunch of guys are at a table and a lady enters and heads over to their table in an attempt to sell her wares. Flashes them a couple times, tries to get one guy to feel her up. Seems like they were uninterested in free samples. Did an install at a hotel several months after an incident with Disney on ice skaters streaking throughout the building. Apparently the real reason for the camera install was an arson in the underground parking. Story 7. Been doing security for almost 6 years. I've seen more weird things in person while working than on camera, but probably the craziest was 2 people hugging in a car. I was working at large 40-story building in very lively downtown area that had a public parking garage attached to it. They were parked directly in view of the camera. They weren't exhibitionists or anything. When my supervisor went down there to let them know we could see them, they were super embarrassed and the lady actually started crying. Countless fights were caught on the camera facing the street, and one time a fight turned into a stabbing. Couldn't see the person getting stabbed, but you could see the guy who did it take off with his friends. Another time a fight turned into a shooting, but we couldn't see anything on camera other than people running. One night at like 4 a.m., a pizza delivery driver was carjacked down the street. We heard a couple shots go off. Then a car, which turned out to be the victim's car, sped past one of our cameras. The driver had a LTC and fired a couple shots at the carjackers, and they fired a couple back, but no one was hit thankfully. Saw the news article about it the next day. Another time we saw a bunch of guys running past another camera in area they shouldn't have been in. I walked over to see what the deal was, and there was 2 guys there frantically calling 911. Apparently they got robbed at gunpoint by the group of guys who ran off. At a different job site in a very quiet area, I'm at the front desk of this small office building, and an employee sprints out of an elevator and into the parking lot. He comes back in and asked if we could see his car on camera. Apparently he was working and happened to look out the window at his car and someone was breaking into it. All caught on camera. The person didn't get away with much if anything, and as far as I know they weren't caught. I didn't see this myself, but most recently one of my coworkers got fired after getting caught on camera beating off in the guard shack in broad daylight. There was previously no camera in the guard shack, but one was installed, and he was fudging there when it was installed lol. So basically crime and hugging mostly. Other less interesting things were mostly drunken antics like people passing out, vomiting, peeing, pooping, things like that. Also minor car accidents, wildlife, people getting arrested,